How's it going, guys, and welcome back to Drop Clutch Garage. Today we have the 1969 Mach 1 back in the garage for a few upgrades. We're going to hit up the cooling system and improve its efficiency dramatically. It is having some issues overheating every now and then. We are in Florida, and like today, it is a hot one. Feels like Death Valley. I've never been to Death Valley, but I'm sure it feels somewhat like this. It's hot, guys. It's real hot. So first things first, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and pop the hood and show you what we're currently working with. Alright, guys, we'll start off with what's good with this cooling system. As you can see, we have this giant 4-core aluminum radiator, which should supply plenty of surface area for what we need to cool this 302. The very first thing you'll notice is that we have an electric fan with no shroud. And guys, whether or not you're running an electric fan or mechanical fan, the fan shroud is probably one of the most important things. Without that shroud, you're pulling air from just all over the place. What the shroud does is seals basically the fan to the radiator and forces the fan only to pull or push air through the radiator. And that makes a huge difference in efficiency, especially when you're trying to cool a V8. All right, and with that electric fan, it is a quite large fan. I'm not quite sure what the CFM rating is, probably around 1,000 somewhere, hopefully. Another issue we have is how it's wired. It looks like somewhere there could be a relay mounted here. We have some fuses. It is wired to always be on with ignition, which you can get by with that. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you do always want to make sure that your engine is running at operating temperature and as close to operating temperature as possible. So what we have is a thermostat kit, which will plug right into there and it'll operate at a certain temperature. It'll trigger the fan to run. I believe that is just a sending unit for the gauge. So we'll have to figure out another spot to pick up coolant for that. All right, guys, we went ahead and sourced some parts from Champion Radiator because that is the radiator that is currently in here. So I figured might as well stick with the same brand here. We got their thermostat kit. It's gonna come with all the wiring we need to run both fans. We're gonna be running a dual fan setup here. We have a relay, we have some fuses, we have our temperature sensor right there. Also came with instructions, nice wiring diagram here. Let's run dual fans with dual relay. We have another diagram for single fan, single relay, dual fan, single relay. I believe this came with a single relay to operate both of our fans. This is the shroud that it came with. As you can see, it has holes already drilled to mount up to our current radiator. It does not have any holes for our fans, so we're gonna have to figure that out, as well as hardware to secure that properly. Looks like quite a nice piece. You can see how that's gonna seal all around the radiator and force the fans only to pull air through the radiator. So what to do is mock up our fans on here and drill 4 holes to get them mounted. Let's go ahead and take a look at those fans real quick. All right. And guys, these are 11-inch diameter fans at 1500 CFM each. So we're gonna have dual 1500 CFM fans at 11-inch diameter each. As you can see here, we have some 4 spots to be able to mount this. Maybe we'll rivet it. That might be a good way to do it. Keep it so that way we don't have any hardware poking into the radiator. But guys, first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and dismantle what's currently on there. So let's go ahead and take care of that. loosen this thing out in weird ways. Go ahead and get our shroud mocked up first, make sure we have no issues with mounting it. Then from there we'll go and proceed with getting the fans mounted to the shroud.
Got some wiring down the road here.
Interesting, yeah, so we're gonna have to measure where we need to drill these holes at. That is our only issue as far as fitting goes. Everything else looks wonderful. Alrighty guys, we can see how they mounted up this radiator. As you Mustang guys know, or any car guys might know this, usually the factory radio bolted up to these holes here. You can see some more down there on both sides. Obviously this is aftermarket radiator and condenser and everything else, so they have a little piece of flat stock that they bent around, and on both sides they use, it looks like an existing hole in the front here. And this is all great and grand and it holds it firm. Only problem is, as you can see, we're gonna have this gap when we go to put our shroud on, which is no bueno. It would still work, it would still cool, but obviously we're gonna get our maximum cooling efficiency with that much of a gap there. And we're not gonna be able to tighten this down all the way, because if we try to tighten it down, it'll just bend this aluminum. Actually stainless, this is stainless. So I think what we're gonna do is go ahead and bring this bend on the inside of the radiator right here, and then we'll capture it with our mounting bolt for the shroud. We'll go through the shroud, we'll go through the radiator, and then we'll go through the mounting bracket. So we'll either drill another hole for this mounting point back here, or maybe oblong that hole enough, because as you can see, we don't have to move it much to get it back on the other side here. And that goes the same with both sides. We'll have to take care of that on both sides. I think that's where I'm gonna start, and then I'll be able to measure more accurately to drill the new holes through the shroud. So let's get to it. On the right side, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the battery here so I can get more access to remove that bracket and get our measurements and everything proper to mount the shroud and everything. Just give myself a little bit more room so I'm not trying to finagle a bolt in that little bit of space and scratch paint and so forth. So get this battery out. Alright guys, I used a set of vice grips on both sides to go ahead and hang our shroud in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and come behind here and mark where I need to drill my holes, top and bottom. Go ahead and remove the shroud and drill those holes out. Guys, I went ahead and changed my game plan in favor of a more cleaner look. Decided I'm going to go ahead and drill this way through the radiator, so that way I only have these two holes on each side through the shroud, and that's all you'll see, rather than, you know, 4 holes. It'll be harder to see through this side, and this side's already got a bunch of holes through it. We'll go ahead and drill from this way through. That way it will yield us a more cleaner look. Alrighty guys, I went ahead and marked my mounting holes for the fan. I'm gonna go ahead and drill those out with a 3/16 drill bit, and then I have some rivets, and we're gonna go ahead and rivet the fans to the shroud. That way I have minimal intrusion with hardware going through, and that way it won't interact with the radiator in any way. Let's go ahead and get these holes drilled and get the fans all riveted to the shroud. Alright guys, as you can see, those rivets do not protrude far past the sheet metal. Will leave us plenty of gap, so that way none of these will ram into the radiator. We're nice and secure, so let's get this mounted on the radiator. Alrighty guys, one thing I noticed here, go ahead and drop that new shroud in with the fans, looks really good. We have hardware coming through for the condenser, and it looks like the previous builder put some rubber pad or RTV, whatever it is. It's some rubberized like goop. It's all melted now to protect that hardware from protruding into the radiator. So like before, we were gonna shorten these up so we could fit them on the inside rather than have them on the outside. We're gonna go ahead and keep them the same length, but still move them to the inside. That way we can space this off that hardware, and we don't have to worry about any contact or puncturing the radiator, and we can clean up whatever that goop is. So let's go ahead and get this mounted up, and then we'll go ahead and get the shroud mounted up. Let's come along, guys. Alright guys, now we're going to start the wiring process for both of our fans here. This is what came with our kit. We have a single relay, which looks like we'll plug into this guy right here. And we have our power source, our ignition power source, fused to the battery, and then the gray one will go to our temperature sensor right here. Also supplies us with a bunch of rain terminals and crimp terminals. Probably going to solder and heat shrink anything that I need to. These guys will hook directly to our fans, and then we got to ground one side, and the other side will go to the red wire coming out of the relay. We're gonna have to go ahead and head over here first and pull out all of our old wiring. It's a bit of a mess. I'm gonna see where I can pull possibly our ignition wire from. Pretty much everything I'm gonna use from that. But I'm gonna go ahead and take a look, and it looks like they have everything routed underneath the core support here. And it's just all electrical taped. So we're gonna get rid of all this here, and we're gonna do it right. So let's start by untaping all this and seeing what we got underneath. Alrighty guys, I went ahead and pulled out all the old harness, relay, everything for the old electrical fan. And what I like to do is kind of run the new harness real roughly as to where it's all going. We have this red wire here that's going to connect to our positive of our fans. We have the yellow one that's going to go to the positive of the battery with an inline fuse. We have a gray, which is going to go to our temperature switch. And then we have our orange, which is going to be our ignition. It's kind of the only thing I'm going to use out of the original harness is the ignition source down there, which is already run inside to the cabin. Everything else I'm going to run all new, and I think I'm even going to run my ground directly to the battery just because it's easy enough to do so. So let's get to mounting up this relay and start wiring. Alrighty guys, so at this stage in the game you can see that we finished up all the wiring here. You can also see that it's still pretty rough. None of it is covered in shielding or kind of wrapped up yet. I like to keep everything kind of loose until I first test it out, so that way if I need to troubleshoot anything, I'm not undoing any zip ties or any shielding or anything all over again. So at this point in the game, I'm going to go ahead and fire the thing up. Make sure those fans come on when it reaches temperature, and we'll be good to go to button this thing up. And at that point, I'll go ahead and route all the wiring nice and clean, tie this all back, and then I got some shielding to kind of grab all those wires there to be in one nice clean harness. All that takes, guys, is just a little bit of patience and extra time to really clean something like this up. It really helps out in the long run. You don't want to leave wiring like this. It could rub against things, cause shorts. Take your time, go ahead and make sure you have some nice clean wiring. Guys, that's going to be a wrap on today's video and the cooling system overhaul on the 69 Mach 1. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any suggestions to possibly get more efficiency out of this cooling system here. Definitely be sure and stay tuned, guys, because we have a few more projects on this Mach 1 before it hits the streets again. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing, and I'll catch you next time.